Good morning, everybody. I'm just logging in early to see that everything is working, and we will get started here in about 5 more minutes. Hey, Amy. Thank you for having me today. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Kristen Blow, and I am a board-certified behavior analyst. And today I wanted to come and talk to you guys a little bit about what is autism and what is ABA therapy. I have been working in the field of ABA for about 7 years now. I started off as a teacher at a school and then started doing some RVT work, working within clinics and homes. And so I just want to start off kind of by talking a little bit about what autism is. And autism is a developmental delay or developmental disability that can cause delays in social and emotional development and communication, and can sometimes cause behavioral challenges. And so ABA, applied behavior analysis, is the one thing that has been scientifically proven as the best treatment for autism. So what we now have is in North Carolina, many insurance companies are covering ABA therapy for individuals who have a diagnosis of autism. So if you would like to get your insurance company to cover this, the first thing that you would need to do is get a diagnosis from either a MD or a PhD. Those are the only two that will count for insurance companies. And although there is no cure for autism, the insurance companies do require that you bring in a new letter certifying that they have autism every 2 years. So I want to talk a little bit more about what applied behavior analysis is. And applied behavior analysis is the evidence-based science that, sorry guys, this is my first live. I'm a little bit nervous. But applied behavior analysis is the evidence-based practice that focuses on helping individuals increase socially significant behaviors. So for a lot of people, you're wondering what is considered a socially significant behavior. So in our field, we look at socially significant behaviors, or what we might call them target behaviors, as behaviors that have immediate and long-term benefits for the person that's engaging in them. So for example, we might have a 5-year-old who, they might want to teach them math. However, this 5-year-old is not toilet trained yet. So for us, the significant behavior is going to be toilet training, because that is the first thing that is needed to help them kind of move forward in the learning process. So when we look at ABA, a lot of times you hear a bad rep about ABA, kind of that it's, we're sitting at a table one-on-one, almost bribing kids is the way that they look at it. We're popping Skittles across the table, but that's not really what ABA is. If you look at it now, ABA will almost look more like a play therapy than anything else. We try to use a lot of natural environment teaching. So we will look at the things that are most important to the kids or the individuals that we're working with, kind of what they are more interested in. So we use anything in their personal environment. We might use video modeling where we show them a video of somebody engaging in the behavior that we want them to engage in. And a lot of times we find that using visuals and video modeling and things like this will work a little bit better because it's giving them a visual model of what we would like them to do. So rather than us just talking to them, they are able to see exactly what it is we're looking for. You'll see a lot of repetition when it comes to teaching within ABA because our biggest thing is that we want to make sure that we have shown them what we want them to do so many times that it becomes natural to them. So we do a lot of role playing sometimes, a lot of play, especially with our younger ones. If we want them to start saying certain words or phrases, we're not just going to have them repeat those words. We're going to have those items there. We're going to let them interact with those items. As soon as they say those words, we want them to have that reinforcement of gaining that item because we want them to know that there is a purpose in all of this, that there is a benefit to this. It will personally benefit them. So when we look at this, the main thing that we want to do is we want to teach each skill. We want to break it down to each step that is necessary for them to make it a very clear and concise thing for them. And we really just kind of focus on normalizing. I don't really like to use that word because what is normal? But we try to normalize or try not to normalize their behaviors. We try to mainstream their behaviors so that whenever they are in public, if they're in the community, if they're at school, if they're at a restaurant, at a church, we can make sure that they are able to access what they need. A lot of times you will hear families say how they have not gone out to eat in a long time, or they don't even feel comfortable going to family members' houses sometimes. And our goal is to make sure that each family, each individual is able to participate in any of the activities that they would like to do on a daily basis. So a lot of what we do is not only working with the children or the individuals, but we also like to incorporate family training, parent training. We always want to make sure that everybody who is involved in this child's life is on the same page and that we're all working towards the same goal. So the best way for us to do that is a lot of times we like to work within the home. So that way parents can be involved, family members can be involved. If we can, we like to get into the school systems, into their classrooms, talking with their teachers, seeing what they feel is important. And from that, we will come up with a plan so that we are all on the same page and being very consistent. Because although we are trying to change certain behaviors, we are not trying to change the individual. So when it comes to changing behaviors, that can be a variety of things. We may want to increase one behavior and decrease another. In certain instances, if it comes to challenging behaviors that are harming themselves or others, we may want to put that behavior completely on extinction. And when we look at doing these things, we have to also look at what is the function of the behavior. When you're working within the field, what you'll hear most of the time are 3 functions, which are going to be access, and that could be access to social reinforcement or tangibles. There could be escape or avoidance, where they just either don't want to engage at all, or they know that if they engage in this one specific behavior, it could end kind of what they don't want to be in. Or you might have where it's just self-reinforcement. So those are kind of the harder behaviors to interrupt or to kind of change because they are so motivated by the intrinsic reinforcement. So what we typically do is we look at what the function of the behavior is. How can we reinforce that function, but also teach the more positive way of engaging in that behavior? So most of the time, we are going to look at what is most important to that child. is motivating that child. So if we know that they love to color or they love bubbles, and we want them to start saying maybe the word bubbles, we're going to blow bubbles. We're going to blow bubbles all over the place. Let them play in it. Let them have those bubbles. And then I might pause and show them, like, hey, say bubbles, bubbles. And as soon as they start to even engage or try to say those words, they're going to get all these bubbles, because you want to reinforce whatever behavior it is. We work really big in reinforcement, and I think that that's something that's really important for everyone to know, because a lot of people do still have kind of the picture of ABA as not a friendly kind of thing to help the kids, and that's not what it is at all. We are so motivated to help them by what motivates them. So positive reinforcement is one of the biggest things that you will hear, that you will see being done within the field. When we look at what target behaviors we want to change, we will talk to parents, we will talk to teachers, we will talk to anybody within that circle that they are with, and just talk to them about what is important to them. What are they seeing on a daily basis? What do they feel like is really going to help this individual gain their best experience when they're in social settings, to help them be more independent no matter what? Because our main goal is to make sure that these children are able to live their most independent life as possible. We don't want to change who they are, again, as a person. We just want to help them be able to have an independent life. So the main thing that I think I kind of want everybody to know is that we are not working in this alone. We take family input very seriously. We want to make sure that all members of the family are able to be incorporated within the treatment plan, within the therapy, because we're not there with them all the time. You know, we are there as often as we can be, but you guys, you family members, even teachers a lot of times are with these kids more than we are able to be. So we want to make sure that everyone has the tools to motivate them, to make them happy, to help them just see that they're doing the right thing. The one thing that I do see a lot in this area is that we are not allowed in school systems, but then you have so many children who are in school and whose parents are struggling with kind of how do I help them within the school. The best thing about what we do is that we, although may not be able to go into the school, we will communicate with teachers. We will offer visuals, we will offer behavior plans, we will offer anything that we can to kind of help them. The biggest thing that I've used as a reinforcer, and that's for kids up to adults, are token systems or reinforcement systems. And that can be tokens, it could be points. The older the individual is, you might do an allowance. But this is basically where we kind of map out for the child exactly what we're looking for. What are the specific behaviors that we want them to show? So we will tell them those behaviors. You know, if we're in school, I want you to sit nicely at your desk, whether it be in a chair, on a ball, because we also have to realize that every child does not learn the same. Every child cannot sit at a desk all day and be able to engage. So we will map that out for them. We want you to be able to stay in your area. We want you to complete a task, and there will be a visual attached to each of these things. And as they check these off, they will see that at the end, they get the reinforcement of their choice. So again, the biggest thing is to remember to reinforce these kids, to let them know that they're doing a great job, to let them know that, you know, even if they don't do exactly what's expected, we might go with, you know, try again. So we're looking for this. I tend to not like to use the words no, to tell them we're not going to do that. We always want to make sure we are saying what we want them to do. We don't really want to focus on what we don't want them to do. We want to let them know, oh, we're going to use walking feet down the hallway. Oh, it looks like your feet might be moving a little bit too fast. Let's try that again. We're going to use walking feet. And then we'll model that for them and show them what those walking feet are. Because the more that you're using the language of don't do this or we don't want you to do this, what you're doing is you're telling them everything that they're not doing, but you're not giving them the example of what we want them to do. And that is the biggest thing. If a child does not respond to tokens, that is okay. We have some kids who respond better to stickers. There are some kids who do points. Sometimes it's going to have to be that you might have to have actual tangibles for them to show what they're doing. You might have to build it up. So it might be that you have to break it down to one step. And as soon as they do this one piece, they go ahead and get a small reinforcer. If they do 2 parts to that, you give them a bigger reinforcer. So it might be more of looking at what it is that we're using to reinforce with, rather than the big picture. We might have to break it down into smaller pieces because, like you said, every child does not respond to tokens. But I would try to see, do they like stickers? Do they like maybe even Play? I've had a kid who we just did little Play-Doh balls, and they preferred to collect the Play-Doh balls, and when they knew when they had 5 of those, they could move on. But I've also had a child who, as soon as they did one thing, I had to go ahead and give them a 1-minute reinforcement break and then bring them back because they couldn't really look and wait for that time. So you just kind of build it up over time. Because again, we are working on what is motivating them. We can't just go with a strict, this is how our reinforcement system works, this is how a token system works, because that can cause frustration and lead to behaviors that we are not even meaning to cause. And I think that's another thing that we really want to focus on, is that when you are working with individuals on the spectrum, it is a spectrum for a reason. It is because they could be lower functioning, they could be higher functioning, and you might have kids who are kind of in the middle. They might be lower in one area but way higher in another, and we have to look at each child individually and just kind of pick what works for them. Okay, yeah, so using instant rewards could work, and I would use something small to start off with, and that way you can build to something larger. That's kind of the best way that I can explain that, because then again, if we give them it all at the beginning, what is there to look forward to if we continue to go along? So that is going to be one of our main things. Reinforcement is number 1. Also, when you look at who is coming in and working with your child, when you first start seeing what therapy looks like, you might feel like, oh, they're not doing anything. All they're doing is playing. But the good thing is that you want them to do that, because if we don't build a relationship with the child where they like us and where we're having a good time and they see us as someone who's coming in to have fun and to help, then what we get is a lot of pushback where we're not seeing any of those positive results because they don't see the purpose in being around us. So I've had children where I have gone to their house for 2 months and done nothing but sit and play with them, because that's how long it took to get them to feel comfortable with me and to trust me and to start moving away from, mom and who they're used to, and kind of trusting in what I'm having them do. And once we kind of build that rapport with them, you kind of see them take off. But the one thing I also want to make sure is said is that, some kids get ABA therapy and you start seeing them make progress within a week. You start seeing so many things change. And then you have other kids who it might take a month, it might take 2 months, and that's okay. Each child is learning at their own pace, and we just want to make sure that whatever we're doing is getting them to where they need to be. So sometimes we might start one way and figure out like, oh, that doesn't really work for them. Let's try another route. And that is where, you kind of advocate for your kids, or we might advocate for them if we're working for them in the school system. It's just kind of taking that data, looking at what's going on and noticing, is this working? Is this actually motivating this child? Are they engaging? Because if they're not, then we need to change what we are doing. I think that, a lot of times we look at school systems and we look at these things where they kind of want to make the kids blend in and do the same thing, but we have to realize that every child does not learn the same, and we might have to do something a little bit extra for this one, or this person might not need as much. And so I want to make sure that, everybody knows that when you're working with ABA, talk to your BCBAs, talk to your RVTs. If you feel like they are doing something that just is not working for your child, let that be known, because we are very flexible in what we do. You're not going to see one treatment plan for this kid look exactly the same as another. We might be teaching the same exact skill to two different kids, but the way we're teaching to one kid might be with a whole bunch of visuals and showing pictures and doing things like that, where with another child, we might have to be actually out in the environment and going up to these different things and teaching them that way. And so that's what's kind of cool about ABA, is that we can go into the community, we can come into the homes. If the home does not seem that it's really working, the home environment, sometimes what we may do is bring them out into the clinic so we have more of a controlled environment, and then move back into the home where we can start training these skills that we taught in the controlled environment into the home environment. An RVT and a BCBA, yes. So an RVT is a registered behavior technician, and a BCBA is a board certified behavior analyst. So a BCBA is going to be the one who is overseeing the case. They are going to do the assessments, they are going to make the treatment plans, they will be doing the parent training, and they will also be training the RVT, which is the person that is going to be working most often one-on-one with your child. So the RVT is going to be more than likely who you see most often, but the BCBA is going to be the one. We are required to supervise at least 10% of the time. Most of the time, what you'll find is most BCBAs like to supervise at least 20 to 30% of the time, just to make sure that we're in there and kind of seeing what's really going on. So we actually oversee the RVTs and what they're doing on a daily basis, and we explain to them, we break down the treatment plans to them. When we first get started with the child, you'll see the BCBA and RVT together a lot, because the BCBA is going to sit in there and teach them step by step how we want to work each goal in this child's treatment plan. And so also, as far as treatment plans go, in order to get the goals, we will do assessments, and we will choose which assessment to do kind of based on the age of your child, where you guys are, and what it is that you're looking to achieve out of it. Once we have the treatment plan together and the goals broken down, I typically will go ahead and go over each goal with the parents, make sure that I'm kind of covering everything that they're looking for, and we will move from there. As the children go ahead and master goals, we will add new goals in, but you will also see them continue to work on old goals, because we want to make sure that they are maintaining these skills. And you will also typically have more than one RVT around, because we want to make sure that they are generalizing the skill. Sometimes what you'll run into if you have just one person working with one child is that this child has become used to this person, so they will perform all these activities. They might show specific skills with this one person, but then when you bring someone else in, they will not do any of the skills that they've just shown. So we like to make sure that there are multiple people working on these goals. This is why I train parents on the goals, so that way they can work on them when we are not able to be around as well, to make sure that they are generalizing these skills and getting the most out of the therapy. Because especially, I mean, even right now, we are in a crazy time that none of us could have prepared for, but that is where it comes in helpful when we are able to train parents and train families, because in times like this, when we are not able to be there directly with everyone, it kind of gives them a baseline and just a place to be able to do, you know, things here and there to try to keep on a schedule and a routine and continue on building those skills. Because although some individuals are able to right now be able to learn through telehealth and be able to access their goals and their stuff this way, right now there are some kids who cannot sit in front of a computer and learn this way. They need someone right there with them to help. So when we're able to incorporate the family and do these family trainings, it really helps for everybody to be able to continue to work on things no matter what is going on. I am a firm believer in, you know, kind of making sure that there's a routine in place and we have a work and fun balance. So there are kids who get 2 hours of therapy a day, but there are some kids who are getting 8 hours of therapy a day. And what you don't want is anyone sitting at a table for 8 hours a day. And so that is not what ABA is. If I have a child who is with me for 8 hours a day, we are going outside, we are having playtime, we are incorporating our goals into everything that we do. Because this can be a stressful thing for some people, and you want to make sure that you are alleviating as much of that stress so that they can actually learn. If I am stressed out, it is hard for me to learn. But if I am having fun, if I am enjoying what I'm doing, I'm engaged in it, it's a lot easier for me to grasp the concept of whatever it is that I'm doing. So a lot of times, we will work on a lot of independent skills. Communication is a huge, huge piece of what we do. Early intervention is huge. So if you are starting to see the signs of any kind of delays, I encourage you to go to your pediatrician, to go to whoever it is that you trust, and seek out just any information, because it could be something and it could be nothing. But what has been proven is that early intervention is key when it comes to autism. The earlier that we can get started in working on ABA therapy and working on communication and increasing these skills, the easier it is for us to kind of close some of those gaps. So communication is a huge piece of what I like to work on. We might use PECs if we have a smaller child, or if we even have an older child who has not begun verbalizing yet. PECs are the picture exchange communication system, where we will have, and I always start off with their most reinforcing items. We're going to start off with the things that they need. Food. Everybody needs food. Drinks. Their favorite toys. And these are things, we're going to take pictures of these things and we're going to pair them together with the actual item. And that way we teach them, you can hand me the picture of this cup and I can give you the cup. Again, the giving of the cup, once you hand me that picture, is that reinforcement. You wanted that cup, you got it, because you saw that by communicating, I was able to get what I wanted. And a lot of times what you will see is a lot of negative behaviors that you might see are actually coming out of the frustration from the lack of the ability to communicate, which is why it is believed that communication is the most important part. If you can't communicate your wants and needs, it makes it very hard and very frustrating to be able to be around people. So if you are seeing some communication delays or anything like that, I think that it would be a great idea to reach out and just see if there's anything, because again, it could be nothing, but it could be something, and the earlier that you're able to get any kind of help, the better. As a BCBA, I love to work alongside with speech therapists and occupational therapists. Again, if we can get everybody on the same page and kind of working together, the better it is for the individual. And let's see, I don't know if I've missed any. Does anybody have any questions that they would like for me to answer? I tried to cover almost everything. Yes, ABA can be provided in inclusive group settings, and it's actually awesome when it is provided in inclusive group settings, because you have other peers as models. The same way that, we might learn from our peers, our kids learn from their peers. So if you are able to have that done in an inclusive setting, that is awesome. I enjoy doing inclusive settings with pullouts, because you get to do the inclusive setting where they can see what their peers are doing. They can model, their peers can model for them sometimes, or they may be a model for their peer. And then, we kind of pull them to the side and we work on that again. So yes, it can be done in inclusive settings. If you are doing ABA therapy through insurance, I will say that it is a little bit harder to get the inclusive group settings. But many daycare programs, even in school systems, that is the best place to be, because you have your peers who can model the appropriate behaviors. I've had kids who are able to help kind of teach these appropriate behaviors that we're looking for not better than the RVT, but I would say the child was almost more receptive because they had somebody who was just like them, another friend, a small peer who was like, oh, we're going to do it this way. And they loved that because, again, it wasn't an authoritative figure saying something. They had their friend who was like, hey, let me help you out. So yes, it can be done in inclusive group settings, and I think that if you can work that in, that is great. Does ABA help more if child Yes, I believe ABA will help more if the teacher is involved. I think that the more people that this child or this individual communicates or interacts with on a regular basis, the more people who are on board and who are working on these skills in the same way at the same time, the better that it's going to be for them. Consistency is huge. Consistency is key. So if you can, even though, like I said, most places are not allowing us into the school systems, I have had many teachers who are willing to meet with me after school or who are willing to let me come in just to observe for a short amount of time. And we kind of sit together and we work on this. You know, I'm seeing this when we work on this skill. What are you seeing? And we come together and make a plan so that way we are working on the same things. Because although ABA is not technically to be working on academics, we still work on the behaviors that are needed to be able to access academics in school. So we may pull some of those things if a student is having a really hard time with worksheets, or they're just having a really hard time with, following the schedule or the routine. These are things that we can help incorporate throughout our therapy session so that we're almost recreating what they're having happen at school and kind of teaching it in a smaller setting for them so that they can be more successful when they go into the classroom. How often a child should receive ABA is going to depend on what level they're functioning at, kind of what skills they're looking to do. So whenever we go in and we meet a child, the first thing that we are going to do is an assessment. Depending on the age of your child or their level, we will choose which assessment to do. And once we finish that assessment, we will make a recommendation on how many hours a week they should have. I don't do anything less than 10 hours a week. And the maximum that you can get is 40 hours a week. 40 hours a week of therapy are going to be more often for your younger kids, 2 and 3 that are just diagnosed, and we're really trying to get that early intervention in. So we're going to recommend anywhere from 30 to 40 hours a week to make sure that we are in there and we are able to teach all these skills to get them ready to go to school, to get them ready to go to daycare even, and just be able to interact with others in their environment. So it's going to depend kind of on where your child is at and, again, on your availability and on what the assessment says. And we also discuss this with the parents. So if I say, I really think your kid needs 40 hours a week of therapy, but I've had parents who are like, that's so much. Like, can we start here? So I've had parents where we start at 25 hours a week and we shape them up to 40 hours a week because that is a lot for a child, especially when they're 2 and 3 years old and they're still needing naps and, you still want to spend time with your child. So we are very flexible in the hours. We are always going to recommend what we think is what they need, but then we're going to work with you on deciding what is going to work best for you and your family. What age? You can begin ABA therapy once you have a diagnosis. You can even have, if you have an at-risk diagnosis. The youngest I have worked with is 18 months. So I will see anywhere from 18 months to 2 years old is the age that you will start. And you can do ABA therapy through the rest of your life if necessary. The other thing about it is that we might start a child off at 40 hours a week. And as they're mastering goals and as they're making that progress, you'll see that we'll start to cut down the hours that are necessary. You'll see the more that they're gaining that independence and the more successful they're being in different settings, we're going to cut that down because our goal is not to have to be there for the rest of their lives. Our goal is that if they need us, we will be there, but we want to make sure that we are able to kind of pass everything on to the family and give everyone, the individual, the family, the skills to be able to live day to day without as many challenges. So I've had a kid where we started off at 40 hours a week and now he's down to 10 hours a week because he's made so much progress. Again, it's been 4 years that we've been working with him, but that is huge progress. So yeah, you can start at the age of 18 months is the youngest that I've seen anywhere. And as soon as you start seeing those delays and milestones and things like that, I suggest just talking to your doctor. Are there reductions of done remote learning for children and families during? Yes, during this time, there are, so the one thing that I've seen, and it kind of depends on the child, the age, but there are a ton of online learning activities that are giving away free subscriptions right now. There's even some places where, and I'll talk to Amy because I have a couple of websites that I can give to her to maybe post on the page where they're giving away different visuals. They're giving away different lesson plans that you can use for your kids. There's some social stories because I know a lot of kids have, even my child, I learn at school. I do home, like all my work is for school. So this transition of being at home and homeschooling is very different. So we have social stories that you can use to, kind of explain to them, we've had a change in our routine. Now we're doing this at home. So the one suggestion I would give, though, is to try to keep them on some kind of schedule and routine. Try to make their days as consistent as possible because it is hard during this time to just try to keep the sanity and keep the consistency that we're used to. So making even just the most basic of schedules, just showing them, we wake up at this time. We're going to do, I call it table time. I never like to call what they're doing work. I don't tell them like we're going to go to the table to do work. I like to call it table time. I think it just sounds more fun. But I think that just in communicating with their teachers, I don't know how much communication is being done between different schools because I know everybody's a little bit different. So my biggest thing has been communicating with teachers, asking them, kind of what is necessary, what is needed, because sometimes you're going to have to pick and choose your battles. And today we might just get one worksheet done, and then we're going to go outside and we're going to do science by looking at trees and playing in the grass, and we're going to focus more on that. It's kind of a day by day, but I think making sure that we are kind of keeping our kids engaged, keeping them kind of on the most consistent routine that we can, and making sure that we have that communication with their teachers during this time. Because the one thing that I think everybody should kind of focus on is that, it is unknown when our kids are going to go back to school. It is unknown what is going to happen next. But what is known is that whatever is happening during this time is affecting our kids emotionally. It is affecting them socially. And it is more important to make sure that we are keeping their mental and social and all that. Their mental health is the most important during this time. We can always catch up on academics, but we want to make sure that we are able to engage with our kids and use this time to really build that relationship. Can ABA incorporate other evidence-based practices? Yes, ABA can incorporate other evidence-based practices and therapies. That is why most of the time, if you are working with the BCBA, the one thing that you'll have us ask are they seeing any other therapists? Have they been to any other therapy places? Because the one thing that we like to do is that we like to see what have they worked on, what are they currently working on in other places, who are the other doctors that they may be talking to, other therapists they may be working with, because you never know, there might be a piece that you're missing that someone else is working on. So we like to incorporate as much as we can. We like to collaborate and work together and just kind of see what is it that you're working on over here that I can piece in over here to try to help build that skill. Because again, the more that everybody's working on the skills, the more likely you are to see that success and to see it a little sooner and to have it generalize. So again, we want to just make sure that open communication is huge within this field. We have to be able to communicate with other therapists. We have to be able to communicate with the families. These are all huge pieces because, again, we can do our piece, but if it's only us working on these skills and then when they leave us, it's never seen again until they come back to us, that doesn't always work the best, because again, you might have a kid who's only getting 10 hours a week. So if we're only seeing them 10 hours a week, those skills are only being worked on within those 10 hours. That may not be the best way to get those skills built to their best capacity. Absolutely. And again, I will try to send over some of those links for Amy to see if we can post them on the page, just to and some of them are just activities to do, just ways to get outside or to have them sit and do art. Art activities are huge. They are a great way to keep everyone engaged. So it is going to depend on your insurance company. It's going to depend on, so some insurance companies are covering at 100%, depending on your plan. Some insurance companies, there is a copay. I've had one insurance company where they give you, as long as you are approved, they will give you a certain amount of sessions. I think it's 120 sessions for the year. And once those sessions are up, then you pay at full price. A lot of ABA companies, what they will do is, if your insurance is not covering, or if your copay is higher, or if you are going to have to pay out of pocket, there are sometimes sliding scales. There are sometimes companies who, it's kind of going to depend on the company that you're working with if your insurance doesn't cover. Some companies have been able to get single case agreement contracts with insurance providers that they're not in network with. So the first thing I would do is contact your insurance provider to see what their coverage looks like. Once you find that out, then I would see who in the area is in network with those providers. And if you find a provider that is, or you find a clinic or a company that you want to use that is not in network, I would call them to see if they are willing to try on single case agreements. Okay, so this one says sometimes children with autism have aversions or fears, for example, only wearing certain clothing, eating only limited foods, not able to go to a store. Can ABA help with these life skills? Absolutely. We do a lot of this. And the way that we work on most of these kind of items are through shaping processes. So what we might do is, if we have a child who only eats orange foods, I have had that. They will not eat a food that is not orange. I typically use a visual that shows how we're going to go about trying a new food. And most of the time, we start with them just tolerating having the new food sitting at the table with them. And that is a step right there. The next time, we might have them pick up that piece of food. And then after that, maybe you're going to smell it, or maybe you're just going to look at it. And we might spend a week just trying to get it to stay on our plate. But we work on all of those different skills, because again, having those aversions or having those fears or things like that can limit what they're able to access in life. And our goal is to be able to expand those limitations, to be able to get them to be able to access as much as they can to make their life the most fulfilling life that they can have. So we do work on all of those things, on fears, on aversions. And I think another thing is when you have a child who has these fears or has these aversions, is to not make them feel bad about it. A lot of times, and not families necessarily, but you will have people who might say offhand comments, not knowing that this is actually a huge thing for them. And for us, it may seem that, it's an unrealistic fear, or this doesn't make sense. Like, why would you not? But it doesn't matter if we understand it or not. Our job is to help them to understand that we can expand this and that it is okay to have this fear, but we're going to work on conquering this fear in this way. So I am currently working on starting my own ABA company. I am not actually connected with a company right now. I am in the process of getting all my contracting and credentialing done with insurance companies so that I can start providing services through my own company. I can post my information in here, and if you would like to contact me, I can possibly help you either to look for another company or even talk about oh, thanks, Amy. um, if we, so I can, yeah, and possibly just even discuss, steps moving forward, or if you are having, I don't know why you want to look for another company, if you would like to discuss that or not, but I might even be able to have some other companies you can look into, or be able to help in the meantime. But yeah, I am currently working on starting my own, and hopefully we'll be up and going within the next couple of months. But I'm going to post my email address here if you would like to email. Okay. And again, for anybody, if you're looking for services, if you just have a question, I am open to helping however I can. The one thing I will say is I feel like there's kind of a limitation to how much access we have to these services right now, and that's why I love autism, or that's why I love Partners in Learning. That's why I love working with other companies that are helping, because I just think that there's a shortage kind of right now, and especially in certain areas of the state. And so that is kind of my goal, is to be able to get information out there and to help others be able to access these therapies and the help that they are needing for their children, because it's not always easy to be able to go out there and find the help you need. It's not always easy to be able to go and talk to somebody. I mean, these are very personal things. These are very private things sometimes that you're having to share, and we get that and we understand that, and that is why we do what we do, because we want to be able to help not only the individual but the families. That is a huge part of what this is all about. Sometimes I think that, people kind of look at it as we're just trying to train these kids, and that's kind of what ABA was looked at for so long, but that's not what we're doing. That's not how we look at it. We look at it as trying to help each child, each individual, each family have the best possible access to anything that they need, have the best outcome in life, because that is what we're all here for. Everybody wants to be able to go out to eat, or wants to be able to even just go for a walk. And if that's what we can help you do, that's what we're going to do. So I guess I just want everybody to know that it doesn't really matter what you're looking at. It doesn't matter the behavior you might be looking at, or, the skill that might be missing. Like, it's all there. We can always help and try to learn, what it is that your family needs and how it is that we can help you. So I am open to any more questions. If anybody would like to email me, I have put my email down in the chat. And I am just really glad that I had the opportunity to get on here and be able to talk to you guys today. And I thank you for joining me and bearing with me through my first live. Does anybody have any other questions or anything they'd like me to touch on before I go? All right. Well, again, thank you guys so much for joining me. If you need anything, please feel free to reach out. I thank you guys so much. Y'all have a good day and stay safe during all this craziness. Bye.